On a train to visit my sister, a little boy grabbed my coat and said, "Grandma, we get off next." He whispered, "Your son told me to find you, but I'm infertile. I could never have children." I followed, thinking he was lost. But when I saw who was waiting on the platform, I went cold. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The train car smelled of coffee and rain-soaked wool. I sat by the window, watching Pennsylvania farmland blur past, my sister's voice still echoing in my head from our phone call that morning. "Come visit, Marjorie. You've been alone in that house too long. 5 years since Andrew died. 5 years of rattling around in rooms that held too many memories and not enough truth. I was 63 years old, dressed in my sensible navy coat, my purse clutched on my lap the way women of my generation do, ready for anything, trusting no one completely. The train rocked gently as we approached Harrisburg. 2 more stops until I'd see Linda. 2 more stops until I could pretend, for a weekend at least, that my life had turned out the way I'd planned. Then a small hand grabbed my coat sleeve. "Grandma, we get off at the next station." I turned to find a boy, maybe 7 years old, with dark curly hair and eyes the color of creek water after a storm. He wore a red backpack and sneakers that lit up when he shifted his weight. I'd never seen him before in my life. "Sweetheart, I think you have the wrong person," I said gently, glancing around for frantic parents. The car was half empty, a businessman with headphones, a young woman sleeping against the window, an elderly couple sharing a sandwich. The boy leaned closer, and his voice dropped to a whisper that raised every hair on the back of my neck. "Your son told me to find you." My breath caught. "I don't have a son." "Yes, you do." His small face was serious, urgent. "He's waiting. You have to come now. Please." Something in his voice, the desperation, the fear barely hidden beneath his words, made me hesitate. Andrew and I never had children. I couldn't. That was the sorrow that had hollowed out our marriage long before the betrayal. But there had been another boy once, a lifetime ago. "What's your name?" I asked quietly. "Danny." "Come on, Grandma. Please." "He said you'd understand. He said you were the only one who could help." The train's brakes began to hiss. We were pulling into Harrisburg, but this wasn't my stop. My sister was waiting 2 stations ahead. I should stay seated. I should ignore this child's impossible claim. But that word, son, had unlocked something I'd buried 23 years ago. "Who sent you?" My voice was steady, but my heart hammered against my ribs. "Michael," the boy said. "Michael Harper." The name was a fist to my chest. I stood without thinking, my legs moving before my mind could catch up. The boy grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the doors as they slid open. Cold November air rushed in. I followed him onto the platform, my purse bouncing against my hip, my sensible shoes clicking on concrete. "Wait," I said, but Danny was already running. I hurried after him, weaving through clusters of travelers. The platform gave way to a grimy underpass, then stairs leading to a parking garage. My breath came short. I wasn't young anymore. My knees complained. But I kept moving because Michael was a name I'd tried to forget and failed every single day for more than 2 decades. Danny stopped beside a silver Honda at the far end of the garage. A man stood there, leaning against the hood. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair touched with gray at the temples. When he looked up and our eyes met, time collapsed. I knew that face. I'd watched it grow from a frightened 10-year-old boy to a sullen teenager. I'd packed his lunches, helped with his homework, held him when nightmares woke him screaming. I'd loved him like he was mine, even knowing he was the proof of my husband's betrayal, the child Andrew had fathered with another woman during what he called a mistake, as if Emma Wallace had been nothing more than a wrong turn. Michael was 38 now. The last time I'd seen him, he'd been 15, angry and broken, the day Andrew told us he was going to live with his paternal grandmother in Toronto. That was the story. That was what I'd believed. "Hello, Marjorie." His voice was deeper, rougher, but underneath I heard the boy who used to call me Mom. "Michael." My throat was tight. "What is this? What's happening?" "I'm sorry. I know this is... I didn't know how else to reach you." He glanced at Danny, who stood between us like a small sentinel. "This is my son. Your grandson, if you'll claim him. Grandson. The word was a gift and a wound all at once. Why now? I asked. 23 years, Michael. Not a word. Not a letter. Your father said you wanted a fresh start, that you didn't want contact. He said, my father lied. Michael's jaw tightened. About everything. The parking garage seemed to grow colder. A car door slammed somewhere above us, the echo bouncing off concrete walls. Get in the car, Michael said quietly. Please. I'll explain everything, but not here. It's not safe. Not safe? I looked around the empty garage, my pulse quickening. What are you talking about? Dad didn't send me to Canada, Michael said, and his voice carried a weight I didn't understand yet. He sent me away, yes, but not to live with family. He paid someone to make sure I disappeared. And the reason why, Marjorie, the reason why is going to change everything you thought you knew about Andrew Harper. I stared at him. My husband had been a careful man, a pharmacist who measured everything precisely, who kept receipts and records, who never left loose ends. But he'd also been a liar. I'd learned that when Michael's mother showed up at our door when the boy was 10, demanding Andrew take responsibility. I need to call my sister, I said. She's expecting me. Tell her you had to change plans. Tell her anything. Michael opened the back door. But we need to leave. Now. There are people looking for me, and if they find me, they'll find you too. And Danny. He looked at his son with fierce protectiveness. I won't let anything happen to him. People? What people? The same ones who made sure I stayed gone for 23 years. The same ones who've been watching you, Marjorie. Did you really think it was a coincidence that your house was broken into last month? My blood went cold. How do you know about that? Because I've been trying to protect you from a distance. But I can't anymore. Things are escalating, and you're in danger whether you know it or not. I thought about the break-in. The police said nothing was taken, just drawers emptied, papers scattered. They'd chalked it up to kids looking for prescription medications since Andrew had been a pharmacist. But afterward, I'd felt watched, followed. I'd dismissed it as paranoia, the nervousness of a woman living alone. What did Andrew do? I whispered. Michael's expression was grim. Get in the car, and I'll tell you. But Marjorie, once you know, you can't unknow it. Your life, your memories of him, everything will change. Danny tugged at my coat again. Please, Grandma. I'm scared. I looked down at this child who shared Michael's eyes, who'd been sent to find me on a train because his father was desperate enough to risk everything. Then I looked at Michael, the boy I'd raised, the son of my heart, if not my body, who'd vanished and left a hole in my life I'd never been able to fill. I need the truth, I said. You'll get it. All of it. Michael's voice softened. I'm sorry I had to come back like this. I'm sorry for everything, but I had nowhere else to turn. I climbed into the back seat beside Danny. My hands were shaking. Michael got behind the wheel, started the engine, and pulled out of the parking garage into weak November sunlight. I watched Harrisburg fall away through the rear window and wondered what I was walking into. Where are we going? I asked. Somewhere safe. Somewhere they won't think to look. Michael met my eyes in the rearview mirror. I have a cabin about 90 miles from here. We'll talk there. And then? And then we figure out how to survive what's coming. Danny leaned against me, and I put my arm around him instinctively. He was warm and real. This grandson I didn't know I had. Questions crowded my throat, but I held them back. Whatever Michael was about to tell me, whatever secrets Andrew had taken to his grave, I needed to hear them clearly. I needed to be ready. The highway stretched ahead. My phone buzzed in my purse. Linda calling, wondering where I was. I let it ring. Dad wasn't who you thought he was, Michael said quietly, his eyes on the road. He worked for someone powerful. And when I found out, when I saw what he was really doing, that's when I became a liability. Andrew was a pharmacist, I said. He ran a small-town pharmacy. That was his cover. Michael's hands tightened on the steering wheel. The pharmacy was how he moved the product, how he kept the books clean. Marjorie, my father wasn't just filling prescriptions. He was part of a network. And the man who ran it, he's still out there, still operating. And when he found out I was alive, that I'd been gathering evidence all these years, he stopped. The silence filled the car like water. "Michael," I said carefully. "What evidence?" He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small USB drive. "Everything. Names, dates, transactions. Enough to bring down the whole operation." He glanced at me again. "But they know I have it. And they know I had help. Someone who kept records, who noticed things she wasn't supposed to notice." My stomach dropped. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying my father wasn't the only one in danger, Marjorie. You are too. You always have been." The USB drive gleamed in the afternoon light, small and innocuous, holding secrets that had already cost years of Michael's life. And now, apparently, they threatened mine. "Who helped you?" I whispered. Michael's face went pale. "My mother, Emma Wallace. The woman my father betrayed you with." He paused. "She's the one who kept the records. She's the one who made sure I'd have proof when the time came. Where is she now?" The silence that followed was answer enough. "They killed her," Michael said flatly. "3 weeks ago. Made it look like an accident. But I know the truth. And that's when I knew I had to find you, had to warn you, had to—" His voice broke. Danny pressed closer to me and I held him tighter. This child who'd lost his grandmother to violence I couldn't yet comprehend. "We're going to fix this," I heard myself say, though I had no idea how. "We're going to figure this out together." Michael nodded, but his jaw was set, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. And in that moment, I understood. Whatever Andrew had done, whatever secrets he'd kept, they hadn't died with him. They'd been waiting, dormant, for 23 years. And now they'd woken up. The cabin sat at the end of a dirt road, surrounded by pine trees that blocked out most of the fading daylight. Michael killed the engine, and for a moment, we just sat there, listening to the tick of cooling metal and the wind moving through branches overhead. "Stay close," Michael said to Danny, who nodded solemnly. Inside, the cabin was spare but clean. A main room with a wood stove, a kitchenette, 2 small bedrooms. The kind of place someone rents when they don't want to be found. Michael locked the door behind us, checked the windows, pulled the curtains closed. "You're scaring him," I said quietly, watching Danny's face. "Good. He should be scared. We all should be." Michael turned to me, and in the dim light, I saw how exhausted he looked. "I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you expected when you got on that train this morning." I set my purse down on a worn sofa. My phone was full of missed calls now, Linda frantic. I'd texted her that I was fine, that something had come up, that I'd explain later. The lies came easier than they should have. "Tell me everything," I said. "Start from the beginning." Michael ran a hand through his hair. "Danny, there are some books in the bedroom. Can you give us a few minutes?" The boy looked at me, uncertain. I nodded. "It's okay, sweetheart. I'll be right here." When Danny disappeared into the bedroom, Michael sank into a chair across from me. "You remember when I came to live with you and Dad? When I was 10? Your mother showed up. Emma. She said Andrew was your father, that she couldn't take care of you anymore. That's what they told you. The truth is more complicated." Michael's voice was flat, careful. "My mother didn't just show up. She was forced to give me up. Someone threatened her, told her if she didn't hand me over to Andrew, she'd lose everything. Her job, her freedom, maybe her life." I felt cold. "Who?" "A man named Vincent Carver. Ever heard that name?" I shook my head. "He ran a network out of Pittsburgh. Still does, far as I know. Prescription medications diverted from legitimate pharmacies, then sold on the black market. Opioids mostly. This was the 90s, before the crisis hit the news, but it was already happening. Andrew was one of his suppliers." My hands clenched in my lap. "Andrew would never." "He did. For years." Michael's eyes were hard. "He kept 2 sets of books, the legitimate pharmacy records and the real ones. My mother worked as his assistant for a while. That's how they met. That's how she found out what he was doing." The room seemed to tilt. I thought about Andrew. Careful, meticulous Andrew, who'd been so angry when Emma disrupted our lives. I'd thought his anger was shame at his betrayal. But maybe it had been something darker. Why didn't she go to the police? Because Carver owned people, police, judges, prosecutors. Anyone who tried to expose him ended up disappeared or discredited. My mother was smart enough to know she couldn't fight him directly. Michael leaned forward. So she kept records. Quietly, carefully. She documented everything she could. And she made sure I knew where to find them if something happened to her. But you were just a child. I was 15 when I figured it all out. I found some of her papers in Andrew's desk. He'd taken them from her. Probably thought he'd destroyed everything. But she'd made copies. Hidden them. He paused. I confronted him. Asked him if it was true. And that's when everything changed. He sent you away, I whispered. He called Carver. Said his son had become a problem. Within 24 hours, 2 men showed up at the house. You remember? You were visiting your sister that weekend. I did remember. I'd come home to find Michael gone, Andrew stone-faced and unapologetic. You're better off, he'd told me. The boy was troubled, needed structure. My mother in Toronto will straighten him out. They didn't take me to Canada, Michael continued. They took me to a group home in West Virginia, told me if I ever contacted you, if I ever tried to come back, they'd kill you. They showed me pictures of our house, your car. They knew your routine, Marjorie. They knew everything. My breath caught. Andrew knew this? Andrew arranged it. The bitterness in his voice was sharp enough to cut. He chose Carver over me, over you, over everything. I stood up, paced to the window, pushed the curtain aside an inch. Outside, darkness was settling over the trees. Somewhere out there, my sister was worried. My quiet life was continuing without me, unaware it had all been built on lies. How did you survive? I asked. I kept my head down, finished school, got out as soon as I could. Michael's voice softened. I met Danny's mother when I was 23, Sarah. She knew about my past, most of it anyway. We got married, had Danny. I thought maybe I could just live quietly, forget. But you didn't forget. No. And when my mother reached out to me 5 years ago, said she'd been diagnosed with cancer and wanted to see me before she died, I went. We talked. She told me she'd never stopped gathering evidence, that she'd spent 20 years documenting Carver's operation, waiting for the right moment to expose him. Why wait so long? Fear, survival. But mostly, she was waiting for Andrew to die. Michael met my eyes. She knew as long as he was alive, Carver would have leverage. Andrew was too deep in it. But once he was gone, once the connection was severed, she thought maybe then it would be safe to act. Andrew had died 5 years ago. Heart attack, sudden and brutal. I'd mourned him despite everything, despite the betrayal, the lies. I'd mourned the man I thought I'd married. Did Emma act? I asked. After Andrew died? She started to. She reached out to a journalist, someone she trusted, began sharing information. Michael's face darkened. 3 weeks ago, she was killed. Car accident, they said. Brake failure. But I know it wasn't an accident. How can you be sure? Because the day before she died, she called me. Said someone had broken into her apartment. Nothing taken, but papers had been disturbed. She was scared. And then, his voice broke. Then she was gone. Danny appeared in the doorway, clutching a worn book. Dad? I'm hungry. Michael wiped his eyes quickly. Okay, buddy. Let me see what we have. While Michael rummaged in the kitchenette, finding crackers and peanut butter, I sat with Danny on the sofa. He opened his book, a picture book about trains, and showed me his favorite page. Do you like trains? I asked gently. Yes. Dad says maybe one day we can ride a real big one, across the whole country. That would be wonderful. He looked up at me with those creek-water eyes. Are you really my grandma? The question lodged in my chest. I raised your father when he was young. So yes, I suppose I am. Do you have a house? I do. It's in a small town called Millbrook. There's a big yard and a porch swing. Can we go there? Danny? Michael's voice held a warning. Why not? Danny asked. If the bad people don't know about Grandma, we could hide there. Michael brought over a plate of crackers. It's not that simple, buddy. But Danny's words hung in the air. I looked at Michael. Would they think to look for you at my house? Eventually. Carver's people are thorough. But not immediately. I pressed. Michael, I live alone. My neighbors are elderly or mind their own business. If you need somewhere to stay while we figure this out, it's too dangerous. Everything is dangerous now. I heard the steel in my voice, surprising myself. You came to me because you had nowhere else to go. Well, I'm offering my house for as long as you need it. Michael studied me for a long moment. You don't know what you're suggesting. These people, they're ruthless. If they find us there, then we'll be careful. We'll be smart. I thought about my quiet life, my empty rooms, the years I'd spent alone. I'm not a helpless old woman, Michael. I survived 30 years married to a liar. I can survive this. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. You always were tougher than you looked. So it's settled. We go to Millbrook. Tonight, if possible. We should wait until tomorrow. Travel during the day, when it's harder to follow someone unnoticed. Michael hesitated. Marjorie, there's something else you need to know. The break-in at your house last month. I don't think they were just looking randomly. I think they were searching for something specific. What? Andrew kept records too. Different ones than my mother, but records nonetheless. Insurance, probably. Something to use if Carver ever turned on him. Michael pulled out the USB drive again. My mother mentioned it before she died. Said Andrew had hidden documentation somewhere, and if we could find it, combine it with what she'd gathered, we'd have enough to take Carver down completely. I stared at the small drive. You think Andrew hid something in our house? I think it's possible. And if Carver's people think so too. A sound outside made us all freeze. Footsteps on gravel. Michael moved faster than I'd have thought possible, pulling Danny close, gesturing for silence. He crept to the window, peered through a gap in the curtains. Car, he whispered. No headlights. My heart hammered. Could be someone lost. Or could be them. Michael's face was pale. Back bedroom. Both of you. Now. Michael. Now, Marjorie. Please. I grabbed Danny's hand and pulled him toward the bedroom. My knees protested, but adrenaline pushed me forward. We crouched beside the bed, in the shadows. I could hear Michael moving in the main room, the scrape of furniture. Voices outside. Low, male. Then a knock at the door. Michael Harper? We know you're in there. We just want to talk. The voice was smooth, reasonable. It terrified me more than shouting would have. Your son's with you, isn't he? Danny? That's his name, right? A pause. We're not here to hurt anyone. We just need the information your mother stole. Give it to us, and this all goes away. Danny pressed against me, trembling. I wrapped my arms around him, held him tight. Your father made a deal with Vincent Carver, the voice continued. A deal your mother broke when she decided to play hero. Don't make the same mistake. Think about your son. Think about that woman you picked up today, Marjorie Harper. Think about what happens to her if you make this difficult. They knew. They'd been watching, following. My blood ran cold. Michael's voice came then, muffled through the walls. I don't have what you're looking for. My mother didn't give me anything. We both know that's not true. Then you know more than I do. Now get off this property before I call the police. A laugh. The police? Michael, you're smarter than that. Silence. Long, terrible silence. Then footsteps retreating. An engine starting. Tires on gravel fading into the distance. Michael appeared in the doorway, his face ashen. They're gone. For now. How did they find us? I asked. I don't know. I was careful. He stopped, pulled out his phone, stared at it. My phone. I'm an idiot. I thought I'd disabled tracking, but... He smashed the phone against the floor, stomped on it until it was fragments. We leave now, he said. Forget waiting until morning. We go to Millbrook tonight, and we figure out what Andrew hid. Because that's our only leverage now. That's the only thing keeping us alive. Danny was crying silently. I held him, whispered reassurances I didn't quite believe. Michael gathered what few supplies he had. The USB drive, some clothes, cash. What if they're waiting on the road? I asked. Then we go through the woods. There's a neighbor about 2 miles north. He owes me a favor. We can get a car from him, take back roads. 2 miles through dark forest with a 7-year-old child and a 63-year-old woman. But what choice did we have? Let's go, I said. We slipped out the back door into cold November night. The trees were black shapes against a darker sky. Michael led the way, Danny between us. My sensible shoes weren't made for hiking, but I pushed forward, ignoring the ache in my legs, the burning in my lungs. Somewhere behind us, I imagined those men watching, waiting. And ahead, in Millbrook, my house held secrets I'd never suspected. Secrets that had cost Emma Wallace her life. Secrets that might cost us ours. We reached the neighbor's property just after midnight. My feet were blistered, my coat torn from branches. But Danny hadn't complained once. Michael knocked on the door of a trailer that had seen better days, and after a tense few minutes, a grizzled man in his 60s appeared with a shotgun. "Michael Harper." The man lowered the gun. "Thought you were smarter than to come back around here. I need help, Earl. A car, just for a few days." Earl's eyes moved to me, then to Danny. "Who are they?" "Family. The people I told you about." Something passed between them. Understanding. Maybe sympathy. Earl disappeared inside and returned with keys. "Blue pickup out back. Plates are clean. Don't bring trouble back to me." "I won't. Thank you." We drove through the night, taking back roads Michael seemed to know by instinct. Danny fell asleep against my shoulder. I watched the darkness slide past and tried to process everything I'd learned. Andrew, my Andrew, had been a criminal, had threatened his own son, had let me live in ignorance for decades. "Did you ever hate me?" I asked quietly. "For not knowing? For not saving you?" Michael's hands tightened on the wheel. "I could never hate you, Marjorie. You were the only good thing in that house. The only person who ever made me feel like I mattered." Tears burned my eyes. I should have seen it. Should have questioned more. He was careful. That was his gift. Making people believe in him. Michael glanced at me. "You loved him. That wasn't your fault." But it felt like a fault. A blindness I couldn't forgive. We reached Millbrook just before dawn. My house sat on Maple Street, a 2-story colonial with white shutters and a wraparound porch. I'd lived there for 35 years. Raised Michael there. Buried Andrew from there. It had always felt safe. Now it felt like a trap. "Park around the corner," I said. "Mrs. Kim next door watches everything. If she sees a strange truck, she'll call the police." Michael parked 3 streets over. We walked through backyards, avoiding street lights. My house was dark, exactly as I'd left it. I unlocked the back door with shaking hands. Inside, everything was familiar. My kitchen with its yellow curtains, the living room with Andrew's chair still positioned by the window. But now it all felt contaminated, staged. "Where would he have hidden something?" Michael asked, setting Danny down on the sofa. The boy curled up immediately, exhausted. "I don't know. He had an office upstairs. A safe in the bedroom closet, but I have the combination. There's nothing unusual in it. Let's start with the office." Andrew's office was exactly as he'd left it 5 years ago. I'd cleaned it, organized it, but never changed anything. His desk, his filing cabinets, his bookshelves full of pharmaceutical references and mystery novels. Michael began searching methodically. Drawers, files, behind picture frames. "What am I looking for?" I asked. "Anything that seems out of place. A key, a document with strange numbers, a name you don't recognize." I started with the bookshelves while morning light crept through the windows. Most were reference books, textbooks from pharmacy school. But on the bottom shelf, tucked behind a row of medical journals, I found a small wooden box I'd never noticed before. "Michael." He came over immediately. The box was locked, no bigger than a cigar box. I shook it. Something shifted inside. Paper, maybe. "There's no key," I said. Michael examined it, then took out a pocket knife and worked at the lock. After a few minutes, it clicked open. Inside were photographs. Old ones, from before I'd known Andrew. A young woman with dark hair, Emma, and beside her, another woman I didn't recognize. Blonde, beautiful, smiling at the camera. On the back of one photo, written in Andrew's handwriting, "Sarah and Emma, 1985. "Sarah," I whispered. That's my wife's name. Michael's face had gone pale. Danny's mother. But that can't be. This photo is almost 40 years old. Your wife would have been not born yet. Michael took the photo, studied it closely. Do you have your cell? I handed it to him. He pulled up something on the browser, typed frantically, then showed me a photograph. A woman, blonde, maybe 60 now. The caption read, Sarah Porter, CEO of Porter Medical Solutions, speaking at healthcare conference. The resemblance was unmistakable. The woman in Andrew's photo could have been her mother, or a younger version of herself. I don't understand, Michael said slowly. My wife's name is Sarah McKenna. She told me she grew up in Ohio, that her parents died when she was young. We met at a coffee shop in Pittsburgh. I think that must be her great-aunt. My wife once told me she heard her great-aunt looked a lot like her. It was random. He stopped. It wasn't random. Michael. She found me. She targeted me. His voice was hollow. How long has she been working for them? Was our whole marriage a lie? I reached for him, but he pulled away, pacing the small office. Danny? Everything about Danny? Was that real? Or was he just... Stop. I grabbed his arm, forced him to look at me. That little boy downstairs is real. Whatever his mother's role in this, he's innocent. And he loves you. You know that. Michael's eyes were wild, but he nodded slowly. Yeah, he does. We need to find out who Sarah Porter is, or was. I looked at the other photos in the box. More images of Emma and Sarah together. Young, laughing, arms around each other. Then one more photo at the bottom, the three of them. Emma, Sarah, and Andrew. Andrew's arms around both women. He knew them both, I said. Before me, before everything. Michael took the photo, turned it over. More of Andrew's handwriting. The three of us. Before it all went wrong. VC ruined everything. VC, Michael breathed. Vincent Carver. A sound downstairs, the front door opening. We both froze. I'd locked that door. I was sure of it. Marjorie? A woman's voice, familiar. Are you home? My sister, Linda. I moved to the top of the stairs. Linda, what are you doing here? She appeared in the hallway below, perfectly dressed as always, her gray hair styled, her coat expensive. I was worried. You said you were coming to visit, then you texted some nonsense about changing plans. I drove here to make sure you were all right. Relief flooded through me. I'm fine. I'm sorry I worried you. Something came up, and Who's in the house with you? Linda's eyes were sharp. I heard voices. Michael appeared beside me at the top of the stairs. Linda's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Recognition. Michael, she said. My goodness, after all these years. Hello, Linda. I heard you'd gone to Canada. Made quite a life for yourself. Her tone was pleasant, but there was an edge to it. What brings you back? Family business, Michael said carefully. Linda smiled. How nice. Well, Marjorie, since you're occupied, I won't intrude. But we should talk soon. There are things you should know. Things about Andrew. My stomach dropped. What things? Not now, but soon. Linda's eyes moved between us. Be careful, sister. The past has a way of catching up to us all. She left, closing the door gently behind her. Michael and I stood frozen at the top of the stairs. She knows something, Michael said. Did you see her face when she saw me? Linda couldn't be involved in this. She's my sister. Marjorie, we can't trust anyone. Not until we know who's working for Carver and who isn't. A cry from the living room. Danny, waking from a nightmare. We rushed downstairs. The boy was sitting up on the sofa, tears streaming down his face. Where's Mom? He sobbed. I want Mom. Michael gathered him close. Shh, buddy. It's okay. I'm here. But Mom said she'd be back. She said, Danny hiccuped. She said to stay with you until she came back. Where is she, Dad? Michael looked at me over Danny's head, his expression stricken. When did your mom say that, Danny? Before we went to find Grandma. She said she had to go away for a while, but she'd come back when it was safe. Did she say where she was going? No, but she was crying. and she gave me her necklace. Danny pulled a thin silver chain from under his shirt. A small pendant dangled from it. A stylized letter C. Carver. It had to be. Danny, I said gently, kneeling in front of him. Did your mom ever talk about her work? About people she knew? Sometimes. She said she helped important people, that her job was to make sure everyone stayed safe. He looked up at Michael. She's not coming back, is she? Michael's jaw clenched. I don't know, buddy, but I could see the truth in his eyes. Sarah, whoever she really was, had disappeared. Either she'd run or someone had taken her. And either way, it meant we were even more alone than we'd thought. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Harper? A man's voice, professional, cold. This is Agent Reeves with the FBI. We need to talk about your stepson, Michael Harper, and his involvement in a federal investigation. My blood turned to ice. I don't know what you're talking about. Ma'am, we have reason to believe Michael is in possession of stolen evidence related to an ongoing investigation. We also have reason to believe he's with you now. For your own safety, I need you to cooperate. Am I under arrest? Not yet. But if you're harboring a fugitive... I hung up. My hands were shaking. The FBI? Michael asked. Or someone pretending to be. I looked at the photos spread across the coffee table. Michael, what if this is bigger than just Carver? What if Andrew was involved in something that went all the way up? Then we're in more danger than I thought. He picked up the photo of the three of them. Andrew, Emma, Sarah. These women knew each other. They worked together, maybe, and one of them is dead. One is missing. We need to find out what they knew. How? The records. My mother's and Andrew's combined. Michael pulled out the USB drive. I need a computer. Offline, not connected to any network. I thought for a moment. Mrs. Kim next door, she has an old desktop her grandson set up. Never connects to the internet. She's terrified of hackers. Can you get access to it? She watches her shows every morning at 10. I could slip in through her back door. I have a key for emergencies. Michael checked his watch. It's almost 9 now. We wait 1 hour, then we find out what my mother died protecting. That hour felt like days. We took turns watching the street through curtains, jumping at every car that passed. Danny ate cereal at my kitchen table, and I made him hot chocolate, trying to give him some semblance of normalcy. At 10 o'clock, I slipped out the back door and through the hedge that separated my yard from Mrs. Kim's. Her television was loud enough that I could hear it from outside. I used my key, moved quietly through her kitchen to the small office where the computer sat covered in dust. I brought it back to my house, and Michael plugged in the USB drive. What we found made everything else seem small. Spreadsheets, hundreds of them. Names, dates, transactions. But not just pharmaceutical diversions. Money laundering, bribes, payments to officials, judges, police chiefs. And woven through it all, a network that stretched from Pittsburgh to Philadelphia, from state capitals to Washington. Andrew's name appeared again and again. So did Emma's and Sarah Porter's. But there was another name that appeared more than any other. A name that made my hands go numb. Linda Pemberton. My sister's married name. No, I whispered. No, that's not possible. But there it was. Payment after payment. Dates going back 30 years. Linda had been working for Carver since before I'd even married Andrew. She's been watching you, Michael said quietly. All these years. Making sure you didn't find out. Making sure you stayed quiet and compliant. My own sister. My blood. The front door burst open. Men poured in, 3 of them moving fast. Michael grabbed Danny, pulled him behind the sofa. I stood frozen as one of the men pointed a gun at us. The USB drive. Now. But it was the woman who walked in behind them who destroyed me completely. Linda. My sister smiled, and it was cold enough to freeze oceans. I'm sorry, Marjorie, she said. I really am, but you should have stayed on that train. Put the gun down, Linda. My voice was steadier than I felt. This is my house. Actually, it's half mine. Or have you forgotten that Andrew left us each a share? Linda moved into the living room with the confidence of someone who'd already won. You never questioned that, did you? Why he'd leave me anything when we barely spoke the last years of his life. Because you're my sister. Because I kept his secrets. Linda's smile was sharp. Because I made sure you never looked too closely at the pharmacy's books. Never wondered why he took so many late-night calls. Never questioned the overseas bank accounts. Michael had Danny pressed against him behind the sofa. One of the armed men moved to cover them while the other two flanked me. I felt exposed, helpless, but I forced myself to stay calm. How long? I asked. How long have you been lying to me? Since the beginning. Before you even met Andrew, actually. Linda settled into Andrew's old chair like she belonged there. Vincent Carver recruited me in 1982. I was working as a legal assistant in Pittsburgh, drowning in student debt. He offered me a way out, keep my eyes open, report on certain people, help facilitate connections. Easy money. Then he asked me to introduce my sister to a nice pharmacist who needed a stable, respectable wife to provide cover for his business. The room spun. You set us up? The charity fundraiser where we met. Completely arranged. Andrew needed a wife who wouldn't ask questions. Someone kind, trusting, who'd be satisfied with a quiet life. You were perfect. Linda examined her nails. And you were so lonely, Marjorie. So desperate to be loved after that broken engagement. You practically threw yourself at him. Shame and rage burned through me in equal measure. You sold me. Your own sister. I gave you a comfortable life. A nice house. Security. What more did you want? The truth, I spat. The truth is overrated. Linda's eyes hardened. Now the USB drive. Give it to me, and maybe we can all walk away from this. Michael spoke from behind the sofa. You're going to kill us anyway. Not necessarily. Danny's just a child. He doesn't need to be harmed. Marjorie's done nothing wrong except trust the wrong people. And you, Michael. You could still make a deal. Vincent Carver is a reasonable man. He killed my mother. Your mother made choices. Bad ones. Linda leaned forward. She could have had a good life. Vincent offered her money, protection, a fresh start after Andrew was done with her. But she chose to keep digging, to gather evidence, to play investigator. That's what killed her, not Vincent. You're insane, I whispered. I'm practical. There's a difference. Linda gestured to one of the men. Search the house. Find the drive. They started tearing through my home. Drawers opened, cushions thrown, books pulled from shelves. Danny whimpered, and I saw Michael's jaw clench. Why Sarah? Michael asked suddenly. Why did you send her after me? Linda's expression flickered. Surprise, maybe respect. You figured that out. Clever. Sarah Porter is Vincent's relative. Smart girl, loyal. When we realized you'd survived, that you hadn't actually disappeared the way we'd arranged, Vincent decided you needed closer supervision. Your Sarah, the one you married, is her relative as well. Sarah McKenna. Same family. Same name. Makes it easier to place people where we need them. So you had her seduce me, marry me, have a child with me. Insurance, Linda said simply. You loved her. You'd never do anything that might put her in danger. It kept you quiet for years. Where is she now? That depends on you. Cooperate and you'll see her again. Refuse and... Linda shrugged. The casual cruelty of it broke something in me. This woman had watched me mourn Andrew, had held my hand at his funeral, had pretended to love me while orchestrating my entire life. You won't get away with this, I said. I already have. For 30 years. Linda stood, moved to the window, checked the street. Do you know how many people are in Vincent's pocket? How deep this goes? The FBI agent who called you earlier. One of ours. The police chief in this town. One of ours. The judge who would hear any case you tried to bring. One of ours. You're surrounded, Marjorie. You always have been. One of the men emerged from upstairs, shaking his head. Nothing up there. Check the basement, the garage, everywhere. Linda turned back to us. Make this easy, Michael. Your son is watching. Do you really want him to see what happens if you refuse? Michael's face was white, but his voice was steady. The drive is encrypted. Even if you get it, you'll never access the files. We have people who can crack any encryption. Not this one. My mother was paranoid. She used military-grade protection. The password is 64 characters randomly generated. I don't even have it memorized. I have to reference a key that's hidden somewhere else. Linda's composure cracked slightly. You're lying. Am I? Try it yourself. Michael pulled the USB drive from his pocket, held it up. Go ahead. Take it. See how far you get. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Linda nodded to one of the men. Take it. We'll verify his claims. The man snatched the drive from Michael's hand. Linda pulled out her phone, made a call. I have the drive. Subject claims it's encrypted beyond our capability to crack. Yes, I'll bring it in. And the subjects? Understood. She hung up. Her expression was cold. Vincent wants to see you personally, Michael. You too, Marjorie. Consider it a family reunion. I'm not going anywhere with you. You don't have a choice. Linda gestured to the men. Bring them, the child too. No. I stepped forward, putting myself between the guns and Danny. He's 7 years old. He's innocent. Leave him here. So he can run to the neighbors? Call the real police? Linda shook her head. Everyone comes. Now move. But as the men moved toward us, a sound cut through the tension. Sirens. Close and getting closer. Linda's head snapped toward the window. Who called the police? I did. Mrs. Kim stood in my kitchen doorway, holding her cell phone. About 10 minutes ago. Told them I heard intruders in Marjorie's house. They're very responsive to elderly Korean women in this neighborhood. Linda's face twisted with fury. Get her. One of the men lunged for Mrs. Kim, but the old woman was faster than she looked. She dodged back into the kitchen, and I heard my back door slam. The man chased after her. We need to leave, Linda snapped. Now. No. The second gunman was looking nervous. If cops show up and find us here with weapons, then we take them through the back. Move. But Michael was already moving. He grabbed a lamp from the side table and hurled it at the nearest man. It shattered against his shoulder, and the man stumbled. Michael grabbed Danny and ran for the front door. Stop them, Linda shouted. I threw myself at Linda, catching her off balance. We fell together, crashing into the coffee table. Pain exploded through my hip, but I held on, kept her from pursuing Michael and Danny. You stupid woman, Linda hissed, trying to shove me off. I loved you, I gasped. You were my sister. How could you do this? For just a second, something flickered in Linda's eyes. Regret, maybe. Or the ghost of the girl she'd once been. Then it was gone, replaced by hard calculation. Money, Marjorie. Power. A life that mattered. She pushed me aside, hard enough that my head cracked against the floor. You wouldn't understand. You were always content with so little. She stood, straightened her coat. The sirens were right outside now. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. This isn't over, Linda said. Vincent will find them. He always does. Then she was gone, out the back door with her men. I lay on my living room floor, pain radiating through my body, listening to police radios crackling outside. Officers poured through the front door. Ma'am? Are you all right? I tried to sit up, winced. My stepson and his son, they ran. You have to find them. Protect them. Ma'am, we need to understand what happened here. There was a report of a break-in. Not a break-in. My sister. How did I explain this? Where did I even start? They helped me to the couch, called an ambulance. I tried to give them Linda's name, tried to explain about Carver and the network, but I saw their skepticism. They thought I was a confused old woman, maybe suffering from shock or dementia. We'll file a report, ma'am. Is there someone we can call? Family? No. My voice broke. No family. They left eventually, after the paramedics checked me over and I refused to go to the hospital. Mrs. Kim appeared once the house was empty, bringing tea and concern. I saw them run, she said quietly. The young man and the boy. They went toward the park. Thank you for calling the police. That woman who came to your door this morning. Your sister. I never liked her. Mrs. Kim poured tea with steady hands. She has cold eyes. I told you this once, remember? After your husband's funeral. I did remember. I'd dismissed it as grief-talking, old prejudices. Now I saw it for what it was. A warning I'd been too blind to heed. "What will you do now?" Mrs. Kim asked. I looked around my ruined living room. Books scattered, cushions torn, the coffee table cracked from where Linda and I had fallen. Everything I'd believed about my life had been a lie. My marriage, my sister's love, my safe little world, all of it built on deception. But Michael and Danny were out there, alone and hunted. And I had something Linda didn't know about, Andrew's letter. I'd found it years ago, tucked inside his copy of The Maltese Falcon, his favorite mystery novel. At the time, I'd thought it was a love letter, something private meant for my eyes only after he was gone. I'd never opened it. Some part of me hadn't wanted to know what final secrets it might contain. Now, I needed to know. I stood, ignoring the pain in my hip, and went to Andrew's bookshelf. The book was still there, spine cracked from repeated readings. I opened it, and the envelope fell out, yellowed with age. "To be opened only if something happens to me," Andrew's handwriting read on the front. I'm sorry for everything. This is the only truth I can give you." My hands shook as I tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a small key. The letter read, "Marjorie, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you found out the truth. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But you deserve to know why. Vincent Carver didn't just recruit me. He had leverage. My brother, your uncle you never knew about, was addicted to opioids. Carver provided them, then held that debt over me. When my brother died of an overdose in 1983, Carver made sure the investigation pointed to me as the supplier. He could destroy my career, my life, anytime he wanted. So I worked for him. I married you on his orders. I sent Michael away to keep him safe. Yes, safe. He'd found out too much, and Carver wanted him dead. I negotiated for his life by agreeing to permanent separation. Emma tried to fight back. I tried to stop her, tried to make her understand it was hopeless. The night she called me, I was supposed to meet her. I didn't go. I was a coward, and she paid the price. The key in this envelope opens a safety deposit box at First National Bank in Pittsburgh. Box 347. Inside is everything. The real records, the evidence Emma and I both collected. We were going to expose Carver together, once we had enough to ensure the case would stick even with his connections. But I got sick. I ran out of time, and I couldn't bring myself to drag you into this, to admit what I'd done, to watch you hate me. I'm sorry. I loved you the only way I knew how, by keeping you ignorant and safe. Forgive me if you can. Use what I've left you if you're brave enough. Andrew. I read it twice, 3 times. Then I looked at Mrs. Kim, who'd been watching quietly. "I need to get to Pittsburgh," I said. "Tonight. That woman and her men, they'll be watching for you. I know." I pocketed the key. "But my stepson needs help, and I'm the only one who knows where the real evidence is hidden." Mrs. Kim nodded slowly. "My grandson has a car. He works nights. He can drive you. It's dangerous. Everything worth doing is." Mrs. Kim stood. "I'll call him. You pack what you need. And Marjorie?" "Yes?" "Your sister. She's wrong about you. You're not content with little. You've just been waiting for something worth fighting for." I looked at this woman who barely knew me but had risked herself to save us. "Thank you. Fight smart," she said. "Fight like a woman who has nothing left to lose and everything to protect." I went upstairs to pack. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Found a place to hide. Danny's safe. Don't trust anyone. M." I typed back. "I have the key. Andrew left evidence. Meet me in Pittsburgh tomorrow. First National Bank." The response came quickly. "Too dangerous. We need it to end this, one way or another." A long pause, then, "Okay. Be careful. You too." I packed light, changes of clothes, what cash I had, the letter, the key, and one more thing, a small recorder I'd bought years ago for a book club I'd never joined. If I was walking into danger, I wanted proof of what happened. Mrs. Kim's grandson arrived at 11, a quiet young man who asked no questions. We drove through the night, taking highways that stretched empty and dark. I dozed fitfully, dreaming of Andrew's face, Linda's cold smile, Michael running with Danny in his arms. We reached Pittsburgh at dawn. The city was waking up. Commuters, coffee shops opening, the ordinary world going about its business. None of them knew about Vincent Carver. None of them knew how corruption could spread like roots through concrete, invisible until it was everywhere. First National Bank wouldn't open until 9. We parked in a garage nearby. Waited. Mrs. Kim's grandson bought coffee and donuts, and I forced myself to eat, knowing I needed strength for whatever came next. At 8:55, I saw them, Linda and 2 men, standing across the street from the bank, watching. They knew. Somehow, they knew. My phone rang. Linda's number. "Hello, Marjorie." Her voice was pleasant, conversational. "I have to admit I underestimated you. The letter. I forgot about the letter. Andrew always was sentimental." "How did you—" "I've had your house under surveillance for years. Cameras Andrew didn't even know about. When you went to the bookshelf last night, I knew what you'd found." Linda paused. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to get that safety deposit box. You're going to bring it to me. And then we're going to have a conversation about Michael and Danny's future. Why would I help you? Because if you don't, I'll make a call. And Michael's hiding place, yes, I found it, will become very dangerous very fast. He thinks he's safe. He's not." My heart stopped. "You're lying." "Am I?" "He's in a motel on Route 30, right? The Starlight Inn. Room 12. His car's parked out front. The blue Honda he borrowed from Earl Montgomery. Shall I have my people pay him a visit?" She knew everything. Every move we'd made. "Don't hurt them," I whispered. "Then cooperate. Get the box. Meet me at the address I'm about to text you. Come alone. And Marjorie?" Linda's voice hardened. "This is your last chance to do the right thing. For once in your life, be smart instead of noble." She hung up. A text arrived with an address. A warehouse district on the north side. I sat in the car, hands shaking, mind racing. If I went into that bank, got Andrew's evidence and handed it to Linda, she'd destroy it. Michael would have nothing. We'd have nothing. But if I refused, she'd kill them. There had to be another way. There had to be. I looked at Mrs. Kim's grandson. "Can you do me one more favor?" "Name it." "Go to the Starlight Inn on Route 30, Room 12. Tell Michael to run. Tell him his location is compromised." "And you?" "I'm going to the bank." I opened the car door. "Whatever happens, make sure Michael gets somewhere safe. He has a USB drive with partial evidence. If I can get Andrew's evidence too, combine them. It might be enough." "You're walking into a trap." "I know." I managed a smile. "But I'm 63 years old. I've lived a long time believing lies. Maybe it's time I finally did something true." I crossed the street toward the bank, toward Linda's watching eyes, toward whatever ending this story had been building to for 30 years. And for the first time since that little boy grabbed my coat on the train, I felt something other than fear. I felt ready. The bank manager was a pleasant woman in her 40s who checked my identification 3 times before leading me to the vault. My hands were steady now. Fear had burned away, leaving something harder, clearer. "Box 347, she said, sliding the long metal drawer from the wall. "You'll have privacy in room 3. Take your time." I carried the box into the small room and closed the door. Inside were manila folders, thick with documents, account ledgers, photographs, recorded conversations on cassette tapes, dated and labeled in Andrew's meticulous handwriting, and a letter addressed to Federal Prosecutor, Eyes Only. Andrew had been thorough. These weren't just pharmacy records. They were transaction logs for money laundering operations across 3 states. Lists of officials on Carver's payroll, including 2 state senators and a federal judge. Shipping manifests for medications diverted from legitimate supply chains. And photographs. Vincent Carver meeting with various officials. Linda in several shots, always in the background, always watching. I spread everything across the table and pulled out my small recorder. Then I did something Linda wouldn't expect. I called her. "Change of plans," I said when she answered. "I'm not meeting you at the warehouse." Silence. Then, "Marjorie, you're making a mistake." "Probably, but I'm done making yours." I kept my voice calm. "I'm at the bank. I have everything Andrew left. And I'm going to give it to you, all of it. But on my terms, in my place. You're not in a position to set terms. Aren't I? You need this evidence destroyed. The USB drive Michael has is encrypted. You said so yourself. But Andrew's records? They're clear. Names, dates, amounts. Everything a prosecutor would need. If anything happens to me, Michael, or Danny, these documents go straight to the FBI. The real FBI, not your bot agents. You're bluffing. You don't know who to trust. True. So I've already made copies and left them with someone who'll mail them to every major newspaper in Pennsylvania if I don't check in by tomorrow morning. A lie. But Linda didn't know that. So here's what's going to happen. You, me, and Vincent Carver, the man himself, are going to meet at my house in Millbrook. This afternoon. Noon. We're going to have a conversation like civilized people. Marjorie. My house, Linda. Where you sold me into a marriage of lies 30 years ago. Seems appropriate, don't you think? I paused. Oh, and come alone, just you and Carver. If I see anyone else, if I even suspect surveillance, those documents go public immediately. You can't guarantee that. You're one person. I'm one person who has nothing left to lose. That makes me very dangerous. I let that sink in. Noon, Linda. Don't be late. I hung up before she could respond. The bank manager helped me pack everything into a large envelope. I walked out into morning sunlight, half expecting Linda's men to grab me on the street, but nothing happened. I hailed a taxi, gave the driver Mrs. Kim's grandson's location. He was waiting, agitated. Your stepson. I couldn't warn him. When I got to the motel, he was already gone. Left in a hurry, looks like. The room was torn apart. My stomach dropped. Did you see anyone else? Linda's people? No, but there was blood. Not much, but did you call the police? And tell them what? I'd just bring more attention. He looked at me. What do we do now? I pulled out my phone, texted Michael's number. Are you and Danny safe? No response. I tried calling, straight to voicemail. We go to Millbrook, I said, forcing down panic. I have a meeting at noon. The drive back felt endless. I clutched Andrew's envelope and tried Michael's phone every 10 minutes. Nothing. Either he'd turned it off, or something terrible had happened. We reached Millbrook at 11:30. Mrs. Kim's grandson dropped me at my house and asked if I needed him to stay. No. This is something I have to do alone. I squeezed his hand. Thank you for everything. Tell your grandmother she was right. I did have something worth fighting for. Inside, my house looked the same as I'd left it, ransacked, violated, but it was still mine. I set Andrew's envelope on the kitchen table, made coffee with shaking hands, and waited. At 11:55, a black Mercedes pulled up outside. Linda emerged from the passenger side, perfectly composed. The driver's door opened, and a man stepped out. Vincent Carver was in his 70s, silver-haired and distinguished in an expensive suit. He looked like someone's grandfather, not a criminal who'd orchestrated decades of corruption and murder. They walked to my front door together. I opened it before they could knock. Marjorie. Carver's voice was cultured, gentle. Thank you for agreeing to meet. I understand this has been a difficult time for you. Come in. They followed me to the kitchen. I'd set out 3 coffee cups, almost laughable in its domesticity. Linda glanced around, checking corners, windows. I told you we're alone, I said. Forgive me for being cautious. Linda sat down and Carver joined her. I remained standing, the kitchen table between us. You have something that belongs to me, Carver said pleasantly. Documents that were obtained through illegal surveillance and theft. I'd like them back. These? I gestured to the envelope. Andrew's life insurance policy, you might say. He collected all of this to protect himself from you. Andrew was a careful man, but he was also sick, dying. He knew I'd never move against him. He was too valuable. Carver sipped the coffee I'd poured. His death was natural, by the way. I had nothing to do with it. But you had everything to do with his life. You owned him. I gave him opportunities, a comfortable existence, and I gave you a good husband, stable, providing. You should be grateful. The audacity of it stole my breath. You gave me a lie. Most marriages are built on lies, Marjorie. At least yours was profitable. Carver set down his cup. Now let's discuss terms. You give me the documents. I ensure that Michael and his son are left alone. Linda arranges for you to live out your remaining years in comfort. Perhaps a nice retirement community somewhere warm. And if I refuse, then Michael's body will be found in a few days, and Danny will disappear into foster care under a false identity. You'll be implicated in drug trafficking based on evidence we'll plant in this house. You'll spend your final years in prison. Carver's pleasant expression never wavered. These are the choices, Marjorie. Take the mercy I'm offering. Where's Michael now? I asked quietly. Safe, for the moment. I want to see him, to know he and Danny are alive. Carver nodded to Linda, who pulled out her phone and showed me a photograph. Michael and Danny, tied to chairs in what looked like a basement. Both alive, both terrified. The timestamp showed it was taken 20 minutes ago. Satisfied? Linda asked. Not remotely. I picked up the envelope, held it. You want this? Then bring them here, to this house. Let me see with my own eyes that they're unharmed. Then we'll talk about terms. Marjorie? Linda started. Those are my conditions. If they're dead, you get nothing. I'll burn these documents right now, and you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what evidence might surface. What witness might come forward. I met Carver's eyes. You've stayed free for 30 years because you're careful, because you eliminate risks. Well, I'm offering you a way to eliminate the biggest risk you have. But you do it my way. Carver studied me for a long moment. Then he smiled. A real smile, almost admiring. You're quite something, Marjorie. Andrew told me once that you were stronger than you seemed. I should have listened. He pulled out his own phone, made a call. Bring them to the Millbrook address. Yes, both of them. Unharmed. He hung up. They'll be here in 40 minutes. We wait. We sat in my kitchen like 3 people at a strange dinner party. Linda checked her watch repeatedly. Carver made small talk about the weather, the town, as if we were old friends. I said nothing, just held onto the envelope and prayed I'd miscalculated nothing. At 12:35, another car pulled up. 2 men dragged Michael and Danny out. Both had their hands bound, but were walking. Alive. They were brought into my kitchen. Danny saw me and started crying. Michael's eye was swollen shut, blood crusted on his lip. But he was alert. You okay, buddy? I asked Danny. He nodded, choking on sobs. It's going to be fine, I said, though I had no idea if that was true. Carver gestured, and one of his men cut Danny's bonds. The boy ran to me and I held him close. Michael remained tied, guarded. Now, Carver said. The documents. I pulled them from the envelope, spread them across the table. Carver and Linda began examining them, page by page. I watched their faces, saw Linda's relief, saw Carver's satisfaction. This is everything? Carver asked. Everything Andrew had. And the USB drive Michael took from Emma? Still encrypted. Useless without the password like Michael told you. Carver nodded slowly. Then we have a resolution. Linda, collect these. We'll destroy them properly. Linda began gathering the papers. Michael caught my eye, and I saw the question there. Why was I giving up? Where was my plan? I waited until every document was stacked neatly in front of Linda. Then I said quietly, Did you know that Andrew liked mystery novels? Everyone looked at me. His favorite was The Maltese Falcon. He read it dozens of times. Do you know what happens in that story? I smiled. The detective solves the case not because he's the strongest or the most powerful, but because he's patient. Because he knows when to reveal what he knows. Marjorie, what are you talking about? Linda's voice held an edge. I'm talking about the fact that you're holding copies. I pulled out my phone, held it up. The real documents, the originals, were photographed and uploaded to a cloud server the moment I left the bank this morning, and they've been shared with someone you don't control. Carver's expression darkened. Who? The woman whose son drove me to Pittsburgh. Mrs. Kim, Korean immigrant, naturalized citizen, completely invisible to your network. She has instructions to contact a reporter at the Philadelphia Inquirer if I don't send her an all-clear message by 2 p.m. today. I checked the time. That's 73 minutes from now. You're lying, Linda said, but her voice shook. Am I? Can you afford to find out? I looked at Carver. Here's what's actually going to happen. You're going to let Michael, Danny, and me walk out of here. You're going to leave us alone, permanently. And in exchange, those documents stay private. And if I refuse? If I just kill all three of you right now? Then Mrs. Kim follows her instructions. The story breaks. Your network collapses. And even if you manage to bribe or threaten your way out of immediate prosecution, your power is broken. Everyone will know your name, know what you've done. I paused. You're 73 years old, Mr. Carver. Do you really want to spend whatever time you have left fighting a public battle you might not win? The silence stretched. Linda was pale. The two guards looked uncertain. Then Michael spoke, his voice rough but clear. She's not lying. I helped set it up this morning. Mrs. Kim has everything, and she's not afraid of you. She survived worse than you in Korea. Plus, I added, Michael still has Emma's encrypted drive. If anything happens to us, if we disappear, if we have accidents, that drive and the password get delivered to the FBI's Internal Affairs Division, not the local office you've compromised. The one in Washington that specializes in corruption cases. Another lie, but spoken with such confidence that I saw Carver believe it. You've thought of everything, he said finally. I had good teachers. You, Andrew, Linda. I gestured to the papers. You can keep those copies if you want. Burn them, frame them. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we understand each other. Mutually assured destruction. You leave us alone, we leave you alone. And Sarah? Michael asked suddenly. Where's my wife? Carver and Linda exchanged glances. Carver sighed. Sarah made her own choices. She became problematic, wanted out of the family business. We couldn't allow that. Where is she? Michael's voice was deadly quiet. She's alive, in protective custody, ours, not the government's. She'll remain there as long as she behaves herself. Carver stood. Consider her additional insurance of your cooperation. That's not... Michael started. That's the deal, I interrupted, catching his eye. For now. Carver studied me again with that unsettling admiration. You know, Marjorie, if you'd worked for me 30 years ago, things might have been very different. If I'd known what you were 30 years ago, I'd have turned you in. He smiled. Yes, I believe you would have. He nodded to his men. Untie him. We're leaving. They cut Michael's bonds. He stumbled but stayed upright. Linda gathered the copied documents with shaking hands. Marjorie, she started. Don't. I kept my voice flat. You stopped being my sister the day you sold me to Andrew. Don't pretend otherwise now. Her face crumpled slightly, but she said nothing. They filed out. Carver, Linda, the guards. We heard car doors slam, engines start, tires on pavement fading into silence. Then we were alone. The three of us in my kitchen, surrounded by the wreckage of everything I'd believed about my life. Danny was still clinging to me. Michael leaned against the counter, exhausted and battered. Did you really set up a dead man's switch? He asked. The documents to Mrs. Kim? No, I admitted. But they believed it. That's what matters. And the encrypted drive from my mother, the password to unlock it? I pulled a small piece of paper from my pocket. On it, in Andrew's handwriting from his letter, was a long string of characters. Your mother and Andrew worked together longer than anyone knew. He kept her password. He kept everything. Michael took the paper, stared at it. Then we can still expose them, but not today. Today we need to disappear, regroup, heal. I looked at him. Your mother spent 20 years gathering evidence. We need to be just as patient, just as careful. And Sarah? We'll find her, I promise. But first, we survive. I touched his bruised face gently. Can you do that? Be patient a little longer? He nodded slowly, then pulled me and Danny into an embrace. We stood there in my ruined kitchen, three people bound by trauma and blood and choices not our own, and for the first time in days, I felt something like hope. What do we do now? Danny asked in a small voice. I looked around my house, this place that had held so many lies. Then I thought about Mrs. Kim's words. Fight smart. Fight like someone with nothing to lose. Now, I said, now we plan. And when we're ready, when we're truly ready, we make sure Emma Wallace didn't die for nothing. Michael met my eyes. In them, I saw grief and rage and determination. Together, he said. Together, I agreed. Outside, storm clouds were gathering. But inside, in this house where Andrew had kept his secrets and Linda had woven her lies, we began to forge something new, something true. 3 months later, I stood in my kitchen making pancakes for Danny while morning sun streamed through windows I'd finally gotten around to washing. The house felt different now, lighter somehow, despite everything it had witnessed. "Can I have chocolate chips in mine?" Danny asked from his seat at the table, swinging his legs. "If you finish your orange juice first." He made a face but drank it. In the months since that terrible day, he'd grown braver, louder, more like a normal 7-year-old boy. The nightmares came less frequently now. Michael said that was because of me, because I'd given him stability. But I knew it was because children are resilient in ways adults forget to be. Michael appeared in the doorway, hair damp from the shower. The bruises had faded weeks ago, but something in his expression remained guarded, watchful. Trust wasn't something you rebuilt overnight. "Any word from your contact?" I asked quietly. He nodded. "Meeting set for tomorrow. Pittsburgh. The real FBI this time. I verified through 3 different channels." After Carver and Linda had left that day, we'd spent weeks planning. Michael had decrypted his mother's files using the password Andrew had preserved. The contents were devastating. 20 years of meticulous documentation that, combined with Andrew's evidence, painted a complete picture of Carver's network. But we'd learned caution. We didn't rush to the authorities. Instead, Michael had carefully researched, found a federal prosecutor with a reputation for integrity, someone too high profile for Carver to have compromised. We'd made contact slowly, carefully, proving we had real evidence before revealing our identities. "I want to come with you," I said. "Marjorie, I'm coming. Emma was my husband's, whatever she was. She tried to protect you. She deserves to have her story told by people who knew what she sacrificed." I flipped a pancake. "Besides, I'm the only one who can testify about Andrew's state of mind when he collected that evidence. That matters for credibility." Michael smiled slightly. "You've gotten good at this. The strategy, the planning. I've had time to learn. I plated pancakes, added chocolate chips to Danny's, and I've had good motivation." The truth was, these 3 months had changed me in ways I was still discovering. I'd sold the house, too many ghosts, too many lies embedded in the walls. We'd moved to a smaller place across town, a ranch-style home with a fenced yard where Danny could play. I'd used part of the money from the sale to hire a private investigator to find Sarah. That had been harder than expected. Carver's organization was careful, compartmentalized. But we'd finally gotten a lead 2 weeks ago, a wellness center in upstate New York that specialized in private rehabilitation, the kind of place where wealthy families sent difficult relatives to disappear. Michael didn't know yet. I wanted to be sure before I gave him hope. "Grandma, can we go to the park after breakfast?" Danny asked through a mouthful of pancake. "If you chew with your mouth closed and say, 'Please.'" He swallowed dramatically. "Please?" "Then yes. But we bundle up. It's cold out there." After breakfast, while Michael worked on organizing documents for tomorrow's meeting, Danny and I walked to the neighborhood park. It was a bright December morning, frost still clinging to the grass. Danny ran ahead to the swings while I settled onto a bench, watching him pump his legs to gain height. My phone buzzed. The private investigator. "Mrs. Harper, I have confirmation. The woman at the Serenity Wellness Center matches the photograph you provided. She's registered under a false name, but it's definitely Sarah McKenna." My heart pounded. "Can we get her out?" "That's complicated. She's not there involuntarily. At least not on paper. She'd have to choose to leave. But..." He paused. "I spoke to one of the staff members who was willing to talk. She said your daughter-in-law is heavily medicated, kept compliant. They make it very difficult for residents to contact the outside world. What do we need to do? Once the FBI moves on Carver, once his organization starts to collapse, She'll be an asset they can't afford to keep. They'll either release her or— He didn't finish. Or eliminate her, I said flatly. Yes, so timing matters. The moment you turn over that evidence, you need to move on Sarah's location too. I understand. Send me everything you have. Address, staff schedules, building layout. Mrs. Harper, what are you planning? Nothing illegal, just insurance. I watched Danny on the swings, innocent and unaware. Thank you for your help. I hung up and sat for a long moment thinking. Tomorrow we'd meet with the FBI. We'd hand over evidence that would likely bring down dozens of corrupt officials, dismantle an organization that had operated for decades. It would be dangerous. Carver would know who'd betrayed him, and even from prison, he'd have reach. But it was the right thing to do. Emma had died gathering that evidence. Andrew, for all his flaws, had preserved it hoping someone would be brave enough to use it. And Michael deserved to have his life back, to raise his son without fear. Higher, Grandma. Push me higher, Danny called. I walked over and gave him a gentle push, watching him soar into cold blue sky, laughing. That evening, after Danny was in bed, I showed Michael the information about Sarah. He stared at the documents, hands shaking. She's alive. She's really alive. They've kept her controlled, compliant. But once Carver's arrested, once the organization fractures, we can get her out. I've already contacted a lawyer who specializes in these situations. Why didn't you tell me before? Because I needed to be sure. And because I hesitated. Because I needed you focused on what we're doing tomorrow. Once we hand over that evidence, there's no going back. Michael set down the papers, rubbed his eyes. Do you ever wonder if we're making a mistake? If we should just take Danny and disappear? Change our names? Start over somewhere Carver can't find us? Every day, I admitted. But then I think about Emma, about all the people Carver's hurt over the years, about the families destroyed by the medications he's diverted, the officials he's corrupted. I paused. We have a chance to stop him. Not many people get that chance. You've become fierce, you know that? Michael smiled sadly. When I was a kid, you were always so gentle, so careful. I worried about you after I left, wondered if you'd be okay. I wasn't okay, not for a long time. I thought about those years after Michael had vanished. The loneliness, the quiet desperation of a life built on lies. But maybe I needed to not be okay. Maybe I needed everything to fall apart so I could learn who I actually was underneath all the pretending. And who are you? Someone stronger than I thought. Someone who doesn't give up. I met his eyes. Someone who protects her family. He pulled me into a hug, and we stood there in my small living room, two people bound by trauma and choice, preparing to face whatever came next. The next morning, we drove to Pittsburgh. Mrs. Kim's grandson had agreed to watch Danny. The boy had become strangely attached to the quiet young man who'd helped us that desperate night. Michael and I dressed carefully, professionally. We looked like what we were, ordinary people doing an extraordinary thing. The FBI field office was intimidating, all concrete and security. But the prosecutor who met us, James Green, was exactly what we'd hoped for. Careful, thorough, incorruptible. We spent 6 hours going through everything. Michael presented the USB drive, now decrypted. I provided Andrew's documents, explained the context, told them about Emma's murder disguised as an accident. We named names, officials, judges, police chiefs. We detailed the pharmaceutical diversion scheme, the money laundering, the decades of corruption. Green listened, took notes, asked pointed questions. Finally, he leaned back in his chair. This is substantial. If even half of it checks out, we're looking at dozens of indictments. RICO charges, conspiracy. It'll be the biggest case this office has seen in decades. He looked at us seriously. You understand what this means for you? You'll be key witnesses. You'll be in danger until we have these people in custody. Even after, there could be retaliation. We understand, I said. And you're willing to testify? Publicly? In court? Michael and I exchanged glances. Then we both nodded. Yes, Michael said. For my mother, for everyone they've hurt. Green stood, shook our hands. We'll move fast. Coordinated arrests, probably within the week. We'll want you in protective custody until then. There's one more thing, I said. I told him about Sarah, about the wellness center, about our suspicion that she'd be eliminated once Carver knew we'd talked. Green made notes. We'll coordinate with local authorities. When we move on Carver, we'll secure her location simultaneously. Thank you. As we left the building, Michael took my hand. We did it. We started it, I corrected. Now comes the hard part. The FBI moved faster than we expected. 4 days later, simultaneous raids occurred across Pennsylvania. Vincent Carver was arrested at his Pittsburgh office. Linda was taken into custody at her home. Dozens of others, officials, operatives, money handlers, were swept up in what the news called the largest corruption case in state history. We watched it unfold from a safe house, FBI agents stationed outside. Michael paced constantly, worried about Sarah. I made tea and tried to stay calm. Then Green called. We have her in federal custody. Safe. She's been debriefed, and she's asking to see her son. Michael's face crumpled with relief. They brought Sarah to the safe house 2 days later. She looked smaller than in the photographs Michael had shown me. Thin, fragile, her blonde hair pulled back. When she saw Danny, she collapsed into tears. My baby. My beautiful boy. Danny ran to her, and they held each other while Michael and I watched from the doorway. Whatever Sarah had done, whatever role she'd played in Carver's organization, in that moment she was just a mother reunited with her child. Later, after Danny had fallen asleep between his parents on the sofa, Sarah and I sat in the kitchen drinking tea. It was awkward. This woman had been sent to manipulate Michael, had married him under false pretenses. But she was also Danny's mother. Thank you, she said quietly, for protecting them, for not giving up. You don't need to thank me. I do. Sarah's hands shook around her cup. I was 17 when Vincent recruited me, told me I'd be helping the family business, that it was important work. By the time I understood what I was really doing, I was in too deep. I kept my mother's surname, McKenna, so it wouldn't be obvious. Then Michael, he was supposed to be an assignment, someone to watch, to control. But I fell in love with him, really loved him. Does he know that? I don't know if he can believe it. After everything I lied about. She looked at me. How do you rebuild trust after something like this? I thought about Andrew, about the 30 years of lies I'd lived through. Slowly, honestly, and you accept that some things can't be fixed, only survived. Will you help me? Help us? Sarah's eyes were desperate. You're the only person Michael trusts completely. If you tell him I'm worth forgiving, I can't tell him that. He has to decide for himself. I softened my voice. But I'll be here, for all of you, because that's what family does. The trials took months. Michael and I testified, told our stories to courtrooms full of strangers. It was exhausting, invasive, painful, but we persevered. Carver was convicted on 43 counts and sentenced to life in prison. Linda received 25 years. Dozens of others were convicted, sentenced, stripped of their positions and power. The corruption they'd built over decades crumbled in weeks. Through it all, I discovered something unexpected. I was good at this. The testimony, the clarity, the refusal to be intimidated. Prosecutors called me a remarkable witness. Defense attorneys tried to shake me and failed. I'd spent 63 years being underestimated, dismissed as just a housewife, just an old woman. Now my age was my armor. My experience was my weapon. A year after that morning on the train, we gathered in my backyard for Danny's 8th birthday. Sarah was there, trying to reconnect with her son while Michael watched with cautious hope. Mrs. Kim and her grandson came, bringing homemade dumplings. Even Green, the prosecutor, stopped by with a gift. I watched them all, this strange, damaged, resilient family we'd become, and felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Peace. You okay? Michael asked, coming to stand beside me. More than okay. I smiled. I was just thinking about that day on the train, when Danny grabbed my coat and said his father sent him. If I'd stayed in my seat, if I'd gone on to visit Linda, none of this would have happened. We'd all still be trapped. Me hiding, You living half a life, Danny never knowing his grandmother. Michael put his arm around me. You saved us, Marjorie. You know that, right? We saved each other. Danny ran up, cake frosting smeared across his face. Grandma, can we tell ghost stories when it gets dark? If your parents say it's okay? But only if you promise not to make them too scary, Sarah added, and Danny groaned dramatically. I watched him run back to his friends, watched Michael and Sarah exchange tentative smiles, watched Mrs. Kim teaching Green's grandson how to fold dumplings properly. This moment, this ordinary, beautiful moment, was what we'd fought for. Not revenge, not vindication, just the chance to live honestly, openly, without fear. That night, after everyone had gone home and the house was quiet, I sat on my porch swing and looked up at the stars. Somewhere in a prison, Carver was staring at walls, his empire destroyed. Somewhere in another prison, Linda was facing the consequences of 30 years of betrayal. I felt no satisfaction in their suffering, no triumph, just a quiet certainty that justice, however imperfect, had been served. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. Thank you for everything. Love you, Mom. Mom. He'd started calling me that a few months ago, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence. It was the title I'd never legally earned, but had always emotionally claimed. I texted back, Love you too, son. Sleep well. The porch swing creaked gently as I rocked. My small house with its fenced yard wasn't grand, wasn't impressive, but it was mine. Truly mine. Built on truth instead of lies. And it was full of people I loved. People who loved me back. I'd spent most of my life being careful, being quiet, being what others expected. I'd married a liar, trusted a betrayer, believed in a world that didn't exist. But when that world collapsed, when everything I'd thought was solid turned to smoke, I'd discovered something Andrew and Linda and Carver had never understood. Age isn't weakness. Experience isn't fragility. And a woman who's survived 63 years of life's complications is more dangerous than any young fool with a gun and an attitude. I was Marjorie Harper. I'd raised a son who wasn't mine by blood but was mine by love. I'd brought down a criminal empire. I'd saved my family. And I'd done it not through violence or force, but through patience, intelligence, and the quiet strength of someone who'd finally learned her own worth. The stars blazed overhead, cold and bright and beautiful. I rocked on my swing, in my house, surrounded by my family's love, and smiled. This was victory. This was home. This was enough. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. I'm sure it will surprise you.